Ladies and gentlemen, this is your tactician, Mr. G Coalition, brother number 17, looking fresh, staying clean, ready to discuss some pro wrestling. But before I even talk about pro wrestling, I'm in a little bit of a sunny mood right now because my Miami Heat in the NBA, fresh off absolutely shocking the world and mollywopping the Milwaukee Bucks, who had the best record in the NBA and were expected to be a strong contender for the championship. We just walked into New York and beat the Knicks in game one, baby. Now, Jimmy Butler's hobbling a little bit, but I think he'll be good to go for game two. And going forward, I have confidence that this team is going to rise from. We were competing against the New York Knicks for the fifth seed in the last couple weeks of the season, but then we completely fell off. Ended up in the play-in tournament, lost the first game of the play-in, lost our first game of the play-in, even though we were at home. Ended up having to play our second game in order to survive. Just barely made through that, and then shocked the world. And I believe that Miami's about to head to the East. If things continue to go right, this team is going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Right back to where we were when we were actually a top team last year. Ooh. I feel pretty good right now. And I'm sorry if there's any Knicks fans who happen to be listening on this stream. Good luck, y'all. We're going to have some beef for at least a couple weeks now. Because this is going to bring me back a little bit to them days when Miami and New York were fighting each other in the play. First off, we're in the same, not only in the same Eastern Conference, but in the same Atlantic Division. Because this was before the Bobcats came in and the divisions were rearranged. Talking the late 90s, early 2000s. We're constantly fighting each other in the playoffs, going to Game 5 or Game 7, if Game 5, when it was the first round, was only best of 5. And it was harsh competition, it was physical, it was guys not only freaking playing ball like they wanted to fight each other, but sometimes actually fighting each other. And it always went down to the wire. That series always went down to the wire. This one, I'm not going to guarantee that this one will. But if I know how hard knowing a little bit about how hard the Knicks have been competing, how much they pretty much cleaned up the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm not gonna say that they're gonna be easy cakes. Nah, this series is gonna be a fight. Trust me. Whoever comes through the Eastern Conference Finals is gonna earn it. But I'm confident it's gonna be my guys. But that's beside the point. The point right now is I want to talk. And it's actually a good thing that I'm actually in a bit of a sunny mood right now too, because what I'm about to talk about is something that could probably set me in a bad mood. It's a little bit of a situation. It's not even a little bit of a situation. It's the situation regarding WWE and the whole state of the WWE over literally the past 4 weeks, ever since WrestleMania Sunday went down. Errors were made, especially in the main event, that ended up caught. And the way that WWE followed up those errors proved that they were errors. The ratings have taken a nosedive, not only in WWE but in the entire wrestling industry. Or at the very least, have completely lost any type of audience bump that the momentum of WrestleMania could have provided, and lost that shit in a week, and just kept going and just kept trending steady downhill from there. But that's beside. But okay, let me not get too far to the weeds of the details. Let me just get to what I'm about to get to real quick. People talk about the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, not the actual WWE title that still has World Heavyweight Championship at the bottom. That's still being held by Roman Reigns. But the new resurrected WWE World Heavyweight Championship introduced by Triple H this past week on Monday Night Raw. And it's not pretty. Not everybody, but a lot of people are walking around calling that the consolation prize championship, the runner-up championship, the nobody can beat Roman, but we need a world heavyweight title, so here you go championship. I personally called it a couple other different names. I'm about to tell y'all what it is right now. It's barely more than a fucking paperweight in terms of its value to me, so I call it the World Paperweight Championship. Hell, I consider it a confession that WWE fucked up at WrestleMania 39 Sunday with the decision to keep the titles on Roman Reigns. But they got to manage it, and they committed themselves to a certain cause that has nothing to do with the quality of the show when it comes to Roman and the titles, Universal Heavyweight titles. They committed themselves to a cause with Roman Reigns that has nothing to do with the quality of the show, and it's all based off political bullshit and multiple different grounds. And I say multiple different grounds because there's some that some people are talking about, but there's others that nobody is hitting on, and that's the internal politics surrounding certain people who don't like Cody Rhodes. Let me make this abundantly clear. That's what's going on right now. That has a lot to do with what happened on WrestleMania Sunday and what's been happening over the past 4 weeks. Let me explain. Cody Rhodes, in the weeks heading into WrestleMania, did a press interview where he was asked a question about, is there any problems or anybody he's having issues with or any type of he getting along in the locker room, and he went into a little bit of detail. He kind of explained a little bit. He was vague about it on purpose, that him and Seth Rollins have had issues, disagreements, and they almost came to blows backstage, but held it together because they got to be professional and they had to work together. But they really don't like each other. But he was not willing to get into the weeds on why. He just it was an example to answer the question, but he was willing to kind of let it die there. But then Seth gets asked about it during his pressers, in the days heading before the show. He gets asked about it, and he goes straight into detail. And basically, it's a matter of, I stayed in WWE and I held it down. I was one of the most important guys in this company for years and years and years, but I've never been on the marquee and this, that, and the third. And now Cody, he left, he went somewhere else, he rebuilt himself and all that shit. Helped himself elsewhere, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he's beating me every week and he's getting that spotlight and he's getting pushed into that main event, and I feel like I worked my entire career to be here and all that stuff. So basically, I'm going to sum up in the quickest, most bluntest way possible Seth Rollins' entire position about why he dislikes Cody Rhodes. Okay, listen to me very, very clearly. He left us! Okay? That's what it is. That's the equivalent of it. That's the entire basis of Seth Rollins' dislike and disdain for Cody Rhodes. And hell, that puts into perspective that promo that he cut back when he was talking to Cody back during the early beginnings of their feuds about how, you don't get to smash a throne. You don't get to go away and then smash a throne and then come back and try to take mine and all that stuff. That was real shit. That was real shit. That wasn't just something that they randomly put in the script. That's how Seth really, really felt about Cody Rhodes. Now, another comment from that same interview that Seth Rollins made was how he would like to face Roman Reigns and take the titles from him at WrestleMania 40. Mind you, 39 hadn't even gone down yet, and he's already talking about beating Roman at 40. He's already talking, first off, about facing Roman at 40 in the first place. He's already talking about that shit. And 39 hasn't even gone down yet. But then something else interesting happens. Seth's comments, both the I want to face Roman comment and the reason he doesn't like Cody, both of those comments get backed up by two other people within that same press tour before the show, before WrestleMania 39. Roman Reigns gets asked about the idea of Rollins and him facing at WrestleMania, following up on the fact that Seth said he would like to see that happen at WrestleMania 40. And Roman said, "Sure, I'd like to do that. That would be a pretty good match. We've never really concisely gone one-on-one on pay-per-view and had a super satisfying conclusion. We only had like one or two matches that went one-on-one against each other. And now it's like we've always had like this kind of brotherly love, but also competitive animosity because he wants to be the top guy. He's been working at it his whole life. This is what he's wanted more than anybody else. He's always wants to be the best, but I firmly believe still that I'm better than he is." Yeah, the exact words from Roman Reigns, basically fueling the fire for a Reigns versus Rollins match at WrestleMania 40 for the Universal titles as the main event. We're not even talking about The Rock. Everybody keeps on saying, "Oh, we're holding on because The Rock, The Rock, The Rock." Oh, The Rock. They're holding on because The Rock hasn't come in and had done his thing yet. Hasn't put over Roman yet in order for somebody else to come in after that and be the guy to beat him. We're not even talking about The Rock. Roman and Seth are talking about facing each other at WrestleMania 40, and they're both feeling the fire, basically saying that I'm better. That let's do it. Let's do it at 40, and I'm better than you. They're both saying that to each other through these press conferences right now. That's what they've been saying. And then, but Roman isn't the only one who made follow-up, who made comments, who was asked to follow up on Seth's comments and then backed him up on it. Guess who else did? Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins' wife, went and backed up his beef with Logan Paul for being a part-time guy who comes in and people think he's kind of he's got these like drama. He's got some fucking bullshit going on behind the scenes in his life and his personal business endeavors. So people kind of think he's a bit of a scumbag. I haven't gotten into the fucking weeds on that and the full details. So I'm not trying to have. I'm not trying to be told what I need to think about him. But in terms of him coming into WWE and being a part-time performer because he's a big-time social media influencer, getting these high-profile matches and stuff, that's another thing that Seth Rollins does not like about the dude, both kayfabe and real life, and Becky Lynch backed him up on that. She backed him up on that, and she backed him up on how, Cody left the company when things weren't going his way, while Seth had stayed there through the highs and lows, through the ebbs and the flows the entire time. Here's the problem with Becky's and Seth's position, as a matter of fact. Let me go ahead and say what the problem with it is. Cody Rhodes was treated as a perennial mid-carder. Seth Rollins was the world heavyweight champion within a year of going singles. Those are two completely different ball games. Cody Rhodes was settled with Stardust toward the end of his WWE career, and that gimmick was supposed to be a one-story gimmick for him and Dustin and the psyche of Cody Rhodes and the implosion of the Rhodes family and how that was supposed to be resolved at a WrestleMania. I believe it was 2016, WrestleMania 32. That shit was supposed to be between them two. And that was supposed to kind of settle that. And we would see what would happen after. The Stardust gimmick wasn't supposed to just be a nondescript supervillain that ended up having no purpose in the end before he fucking got released. He wanted to finish that story, which is why he ended up keeping the gimmick, but he never got the chance to. So he asked out. And before that, there was never like any real sign that Cody was the guy that they were aiming towards to be a world champion. Seth Rollins already fucking had that. So it's two completely different ball games. It's two completely different acts of the spectrum. You're treated as basically a main eventer, either not in place of Roman Reigns, but ahead of Roman Reigns for him to catch up to and pass. You were that guy. Cody was always a mid-carder. He was always a guy who, he had a dad in the business. He had a famous dad in the business who was helping to develop the future through FCW and NXT. He's the guy that fucking trained you when you came to WWE. Talking about Dusty. But Vince seems to always want that thing where, like, if he seems to always want that sense of control for most of these second, third generation cats who he knows that if like you're where it's like you're not gonna be as famous or as successful as the past generation that came before you. Because I'm not trying to put your family over mine. You're either gonna be more successful, considerably more successful, or you're gonna be considerably less successful, depending on where you go, depending on where your parents were in my company and in the business in general, and how much upside you have potential wise. I think Roman and the Usos are two of the few cats who got more rather than less compared to their fathers. And most of all, also The Rock. It's funny. It's like most, if not all, of the cats who got more than their fathers are the Samoans. Damn near everybody else gets less than their fathers for multiple reasons. Some of it I think is political. Some of it is they don't have quite the same upside that their previous that their progenitors had. But with the Samoans, especially Roman, Usos, The Rock, it seems to be a move up. But all the other generations, it seems to be a move down. But that's a different story for another day. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on that either, because that's not really my whole point. But the point is, Seth Rollins was in a much higher position than Cody Rhodes and was regarded much more highly in terms of like where WWE saw his future as a performer and as a character and saw what his position on the card. They saw him a lot higher than they saw Cody Rhodes the entire time. And Cody decided to bet on himself. That's not a bad deal. Because if you look at some of the people who leave and come back, you have Cody, you have Drew McIntyre, you had Sasha Banks while under contract. She had several walkouts, and she even went out and did her own thing to try to get the role on The Mandalorian as Casca Reeves. And these people, they seem to like when they go away for a while, whether it's under contract or not, to do other things, whether it's under contract doing something else to kind of revamp themselves, or it's actually leaving the company and rebuilding themselves on the indies, and then they come back, and Vince McMahon seems to have more respect for them when they're able to do that. Hell, he even tried it with freaking Albert when he left, went to New Japan, had that run as Giant Bernard, and then came back as Tensai. He freaking beat John Cena before once again, the whole he's Albert thing, like kind of kicked in and took over and ended his career basically in terms of being an active performer. But yeah, we've seen that be a thing for Vince, and that's and when it's appropriate to story and build and fan reception, you fucking run with it. We've seen that with Vince and Triple H in the past. So why in the world are you freaking getting super offended? Hell, you're probably still getting paid more than Rhodes, to be perfectly honest. If I don't know the full deal with their contracts and their money and whatever, but Seth is not in a bad place at all. I don't see why he would be so like territorial, and actually I do see why he'd be territorial and jealous. You don't want to end up going downward in terms of those positions. But so that's not my real gripe. My real gripe is the dude said this publicly. Seth Rollins said this in the air, in the press. He put this out in the air. He put this out in the atmosphere before WrestleMania. His issues with Cody Rhodes, his feeling that he should be he should be the main event, he should be the marquee guy, and he wants to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40 in the main event. He put all that shit out there into the atmosphere. Roman Reigns backed him up publicly on that match, the WrestleMania 40 main event of Roman versus Seth for the titles. Becky Lynch publicly backed him up on the comments about why he doesn't like either Logan Paul or Cody Rhodes. And if you know anything about the backstage environment in WWE likes to really tightly control details like that in terms of talent relations and what guys want to do and things of that nature. They like to tightly control that type of shit. So if you're going out there and you're going in the business for yourself in these interviews and you're saying something that they don't want you to say, you're going to hear reports like 5 days later or so. You're going to hear reports about how guys are in the freaking doghouse, how guys are catching heat backstage, and you're going to see it in their booking that like they've just their booking considerably dips into lower quality or lower placement almost overnight compared to where it was before they made such comments. So you're going to see both the dirt sheet reports and the booking go downhill almost immediately if WWE has a problem with something you said online. So realistically, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Becky Lynch just set themselves up for a major fucking fall. Theoretically. If they have heat backstage for anything that it said. For anything that Seth said that Roman and Becky backed him on. They set themselves up for a fall at WrestleMania. Now, Roman Reigns, he already should fall at WrestleMania 39 because of this way that the whole storyline was crescendoing, involving not just him and Cody, but also Sammy, Kevin, and the Usos and all that. That whole crescendo was set to collapse, was set to freaking kick into overdrive with all the Samoans losing their belts at WrestleMania. And that whole powder keg would have been set off, and that would have moved the product forward in a way that made sense. That's what was supposed to happen. But obviously, you look at the political BS in the air, it didn't happen because of that. And the reason I say that their politics stopped it from happening is because, if anything, if they fucking went into business in public and they knew and there was no reason to believe that WWE like either would be on their side in any of this, if they had really caught heat and they were really in the doghouse, you would have seen them all fall at Mania. Becky Lynch would have fucking taken an L. Trish Stratus' heel turn wouldn't have been held off for like a Raw 8 or 9, 10 for like the second Raw after WrestleMania 8 days later. It would have been done that night. And Damage Control would have won. Trish Stratus would have betrayed Becky Lynch, and Io Sky would have pinned her to become the number one contender. Because clearly they're not trying to fucking put Bayley in that position anymore. To be the number one contender for the Raw Women's title. It would have been Trish betraying Becky and Io pinning her at WrestleMania. It would have been Logan Paul, with KSI's help, beating Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. It would have been Cody Rhodes with Sammy and Kevin Owens not fighting off the Usos. Actually, yeah, fighting off the Usos. First talking off the Usos or trying to talk off the Usos, then actually fighting them off without touching anybody. And it would have been, they would have either accelerated the return of Matt Riddle, or they would have had Brock Lesnar, or they would have done something else a little bit more creative to fend off Solo Sikoa so that he couldn't screw Cody Rhodes. And that way, Cody was going to win and beat Roman and take the Universal titles, and it would have gone the way it should have. That's what would have happened if those comments had put anybody in the fucking doghouse. Look at the way that Asuka was treated after she lost to Bianca. She knew that was BS. Like, this was the 5th time she comes into WrestleMania to stare up at the lights, and she just had a reinvented version of her character, back to the roots of Kana, the dangerous murder clown that she was in Japan before she came to WWE. And she loses clean, flat as a whistle, to Bianca Belair, who's already spent a year as champion, who's already pretty much spent up all of her opponents as champion. And all of a sudden, Asuka, she's on an island with nowhere to go. She freaking goes off on Twitter about the women's division being boring, about needing to create chaos, about how she should probably go back to Japan, but she knows her fans will miss her. And where has she been since? Has she shown up on the product since? As far as I know, she has completely disappeared since then. But then you want to compare that to Seth Rollins. First off, he won at WrestleMania. Then the very next night on Raw, the dude goes out there and basically holds a concert, or he's the orchestrator of the whole of his song, which goes from and that whole thing ends up going past the commercial break, extending, and when they come back from commercials, and then there's nothing after that. He's freaking told to leave after that. Like, that was obviously a bullshit segment. That was obviously a bullshit segment. So if we hear that he went backstage and he got pissed off about that, and he kind of had issues backstage, he's unhappy creatively and things of that nature. If we hear about that, of course that makes sense, because that was a bullshit segment, right? But you want to extend that to saying he's in the doghouse. You want to compare him being in the doghouse? Look at Asuka. She has not appeared once. She lost at WrestleMania, and she hasn't appeared lost at WrestleMania. Got mad about that, posted about it. She hasn't been seen since. Seth Rollins? Okay, yeah, he wasn't seen for like a week or two. But he immediately gets placed into a match with, but in the meantime, while he's supposedly missing, he gets placed and announced into a match with Omos at Backlash. Omos. Speaking of Omos, let's talk about, let me go into a very brief detour about why you're fighting Omos doesn't mean you're in the goddamn doghouse. Omos' first win as a singles start after his tag team with AJ Styles was broken up was him pretty much squashing AJ Styles, who, remember, is a former WWE champion who spent over a decade as the best wrestler in the world. That's the guy that Omos was squashing on Monday Night Raw. You face him on pay-per-view. He's the guy who they've put in against their Titans. Against their Titans. Against Bobby Lashley, against Brock Lesnar, against Braun Strowman at major pay-per-view events. He fought Lashley and Brock at WrestleMania. He fought Braun Strowman in Saudi Arabia. He's that guy that they're depending on to face these dudes. Because he is legitimately a 7'3", 416-pound Nigerian giant. He's huge. He's black. He's an attraction. He's a draw. They're going to run with that guy. And people want to compare him to the Great Khali. He moves around a lot better than the Great Khali. Maybe Giant Singh, before he went to WWE, he was moving around better than Omos is. But by the time he came to WWE, his knees were fucking shit. By the time he became the Great Khali, his knees were dead. Omos moves a lot better than the Great Khali. Do not mistake that. Just because he's not a freaking cruiserweight who flips and flies around the ring doesn't mean he sucks. Doesn't mean he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's actually good for what he's supposed to be. Hell, The Undertaker, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall have all sung this dude's praises. Kevin, Hall and Nash are like, he knows what he's doing as far as working, being a big man. He understands what he's supposed to do. Undertaker's literally over here walking around saying that he's got more upside than Andre the Giant. Undertaker. All love and respect for the dead man. This is not an era that is friendly to giants. So I'm not going to walk around and say that he's got more upside than Andre. He probably moves better than Andre did at a certain point. Because I remember Andre was a serious athlete in his prime. But after a certain point, while he was still a top guy, Andre was not moving around as well as Omos. So yeah, Omos, to say he has more upside, you can maybe say physically, in terms of like what he can actually do physically, cool. But in terms of his stature and his status and where he can reach in terms of being a big star, I don't see this era as being the era that is going to allow to where like a lot of the participation trophy type of ways of this generation are really going to allow for a giant to tower over the company like that and not be accepted. I don't see it. But it's still high praise. It still reflects what a lot of these people think of Omos. That's who Seth Rollins is fighting at Backlash. So Seth Rollins is not really in the doghouse when you put that match together. It's just bad booking. It's bad creative. It's terrible. You just throw that shit out there for no explanation or no reason. It's bad booking. It's bad creative. But it's not Seth Rollins being in a fucking doghouse. If Seth Rollins was in the doghouse, Why in the blue fuck did he come back? Did he come back to Raw the same night that Triple H unveiled the new World Paperweight Championship and made that ridiculously bad explanation that pretty much tells you point blank it's the nobody could beat Roman title? And when Seth comes back, obviously they got like numerous like high-level guys walking around during their entrance eyeing that championship as it's like set up on a podium outside after Triple H's announcement. Seth straight up gets on a microphone and cuts this supposedly passionate screech about how this title is an opportunity for them to fight. This title is an opportunity for a champion that you can be proud of. How this title is an opportunity for a championship that's not defined by politics and part-timers. Almost like he's trying to take a shot at Roman Reigns. Bitch, I still remember the shit you said about wanting Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. You think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm a dummy? Do you think I'm not paying attention to what's actually going down here? Nah, Seth, this is proof that you ass was not in the doghouse. This is proof that this whole thing, everything after Mania 39, from the nonsensical coming out to do your song and leave shit, to the reports that you were supposedly creatively unhappy or somehow in the doghouse, compare that to Asuka actually being in the doghouse. Get the fuck out of here with that. And what else? And now you coming back and doing this and having this speech. This is all to distance Seth Rollins from any role that he might have played in the decision. This is all to protect Seth Rollins by distancing him from any role that he might have played in politicking behind the scenes to get rid of Cody Rhodes from the championship picture. And trust me, that's what they're trying to fucking do here. That's what's trying to be made happen. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Becky Lynch have, if they said that shit privately, publicly, you know damn well they've been saying it privately in the locker room to Vince McMahon, to Triple H. You know they've been talking that shit about Cody and about how Roman needs 1,000 days. Roman's on the verge of making history. Cody's the guy who left and tried to smash the throne. Seth Rollins is a marquee player who needs to be treated as such. He needs to be put in that main event. Roman versus Seth at WrestleMania 40, the settle of the score of the Shield. That's the way to go. Look at how over Seth Rollins is because people sing his song. Which is really the only reason he's a babyface at all, because other than that, his entire character and demeanor, the way he presents himself and how he portrays himself, both behind the scenes and on the show, screams this motherfucker should be a heel. But because people like singing his song and he has high-flying moves, he's a babyface. With no explanation for how the turn was happened. But really, that's problems right there. That's problems. But you know they've been singing that shit in the back. If they're able to say it so confidently, knowing that they're not going to really catch hate for it in public, you know they've been saying that shit in the back with Vince and Hunter. You know they've been doing that. And what's my clue that Seth Rollins hasn't really been in the doghouse? Roman Reigns is nowhere near the doghouse. He backed up Seth Rollins. Becky Lynch is getting in a high-profile feud with Trish Stratus, got to actually win at WrestleMania, and now gets pushed in a high-profile feud with Trish Stratus that's probably going up to, I don't know what show. They're probably aiming for that to actually be a match at SummerSlam. And they're flipping around, and as we just saw with the WWE draft, Rhea Ripley, I believe, got drafted to Raw. They're flipping who the champions are between Rhea and Bianca. They're flipping the brand titles. So Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley is possibly in the cards. So if we play it like that, she's not in the doghouse. So y'all failed to spot check WWE. You tried to tell me that Seth Rollins is in the doghouse for the comments that he made and in the WrestleMania. But neither Becky Lynch nor Roman Reigns are anywhere close to the doghouse, and they backed him up on it. Failed to spot check, y'all. I see through what's going on. I know that it's political, what is happening with Cody Rhodes. Why he got... First off, he got derailed when he lost that match. And then the next night on Raw, he gets jumped. He gets set up and jumped and betrayed and supposedly partnered and then betrayed by Brock Lesnar. And through the entire build to Backlash, where they're supposed... Or is it Backlash or is it Saudi? I think it's Backlash where they're going to have their match. Triple H had enough time to have a whole new World Heavyweight Championship created because nobody could beat Roman Reigns. He couldn't come up with a good explanation for that. He couldn't come up with a good explanation for how Seth Rollins versus Omos came to happen as a match. And he couldn't come up with a good explanation after weeks and weeks and weeks why Brock Lesnar attacked Cody Rhodes. Instead, we're being left up to speculate. Everybody inside the company and outside is being left to speculate. We're speculating based off reasons. And actually, let me tell you, these reasons that we're speculating on, they make no goddamn sense. Internally, WWE says it's because Brock Lesnar was upset that he had to open the show at WrestleMania while Cody got to be the main event. That makes absolutely no sense because we've already seen it be the angle both on and off screen, that Brock Lesnar is a guy who he just believes in doing his job and going home. If he's not going to be the main event, he wants to be the opener. He's made that abundantly clear. That's been an angle behind certain matches. Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, what year was it again? 2019? WrestleMania 35. That shit was the opener because it wasn't the main event, because Paul Heyman straight up said on the microphone, Brock Lesnar is either closing the show or he's opening the show so we can go home immediately if he's not going to be the main event. This is a plot point. If Brock isn't the main event, he wants to be the opener. Why the fuck would he be upset about being the opener? See, I'm already getting worked up, but it makes no damn sense. And that is a bad idea. That's bad creative. And by the way, Roman was also in that main event, and Roman screwing him, along with his family, Roman and his family screwing Brock at SummerSlam in that last chance match is the reason Brock can never be in the main event when Roman is around. So why would Cody be the guy who Brock would attack and Roman gets completely left alone? As a matter of fact, why wouldn't Brock come back at WrestleMania 39 and be the reason that Solo's attempt to interfere at the end backfires or does not take effect, and Roman ends up having to go one-on-one with Cody, and Cody beats Roman straight up? Why wouldn't Brock be the guy to neutralize Solo to make sure Cody didn't get screwed? If he really cares that much about not being the main event, first off, that would have given him a presence in the main event of WrestleMania despite not officially being in the match. Second, that would have freed him up to be a contender for the World Championship again, which would free him up to main event again, if that's what Brock really cared about. No, but this isn't thought up at WrestleMania. This is only thought up after the fact to say that this is why Brock was mad at Cody and that's why he beat him up, because we need a reason for Brock to have attacked Cody. And guess what? Much of what I just said also applies to the fact that, to the fans' theory that, Brock was upset at Cody because Cody didn't beat Roman, which means Brock is still locked out of the main event. This is, again, what? You know how you got locked out of the main event. The fucking bloodline interfered. The Usos and Paul Heyman were in your way. You know how you lost that match to Roman Reigns. It's his fucking family stepping in. It's not that Roman is this indomitable beast, this titan of a man who nobody could overcome because he's the most durable man in history. No, it's his family screwing everyone. So again, if Brock really cared, he would have stopped Heyman and Solo at WrestleMania instead of throwing a temper tantrum on Cody the night after. None of the reasoning that other people are speculating tracks, which is why none of the reasoning ever comes out of Brock Lesnar's mouth, because Brock Lesnar knows it is stupid, and he's not going to be the guy to go out and say the stupid thing. There. So this main event, this supposed main event between Cody and Brock is already nonsensical. And now he gets drafted opposite of Roman Reigns. But he goes out at a house show and basically declares that he's not done with Roman Reigns. I'm supposed to believe he's not done with Roman Reigns? I'm supposed to believe it. No, if I believe this Cody Rhodes is not done with Roman Reigns, that means I believe that it is a 100% guarantee he's winning the Royal Rumble next year, which would be a second Royal Rumble in a row, and he's going to WrestleMania 40 to fight Roman Reigns. But clearly, Seth Rollins is politicking for that position to be his. That's part of what they're angling for. Let's remember. That's part of what Seth and Roman and Becky are angling for. Roman versus Seth be the WrestleMania 40 main event. So Cody, in order to get that from the opposite brand, he would have to win the Royal Rumble if the brand split is actually going to be refortified now. I have my doubts that Triple H knows how to do that right, but if that's what they're trying to do, the idea is that Cody Rhodes would face Roman Reigns, would win the Royal Rumble again, and then elect to face Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed for the. I don't know if it's I don't even know which freaking belt it's going to be. If it's going to be the WWE title, if it's going to be the Universal title, if it's going to be what, I don't know. I don't even know. And that's the other fucking thing. You now half of Roman's title is a WWE World Heavyweight Championship. What you just created over there is a WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and the half, but so. And the title that Roman has right now, like the one that's the WWE World Heavyweight Championship is the one that has the actual history and lineage of the WWE behind it. Well, the Universal title is the one that he's got the 1,000-day reign coming up for. So which title is going to be absorbed into which? We don't know. It's ridiculous. This is nonsensically overbooked, everything that's going on. And I'm explaining the politics behind how it fucking got done. These three people, Roman, Seth, and Becky, have been in the ears of Vince McMahon and Triple H. Have been in the ears of Vince McMahon to try to convince him about how historic Roman Reigns' title has an opportunity to be. And now we're even hearing talk that this is not even going to be ending at SummerSlam or at WrestleMania 40. This is trying to go all the way over to a year and a half from now. Roman breaking Hulk Hogan's record of 1,474 days as a champion to be the third longest reigning champion in world champion in WWE history. Meanwhile, it's not even the same championship, number one. And number two, you already know that if he's getting past 1474, he's get to 1475, he's going to get to 1500. So that's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for Roman Reigns to have a 1,500-day reign as champion. That's what some people are talking about backstage. And you're hearing some reports about that. That's what they want to do. And again, it's fucking politics. You want to displace Hulk Hogan, a guy who's run afoul, who's gone back and forth between the WWE machine who one day they're good, the next day they're not, and a guy who the political winds have decided is inappropriate to be promoting. That's all I'm going to say about that. So they want Roman to pass Hogan. That's what they're talking about. So this ain't over anytime soon. Unless the outrage and the backlash gets to where you can't possibly ride this out. This ain't ending anytime soon. Let me just put it like that. So you got those political wins. You got those political wins on the Roman's camp. And on Seth and Becky's camp, you got the side that we don't need that. No, you shouldn't be relying on Cody, who already left your company. You should be relying on me because I've been there for over a decade being one of your top guys. But that's not what the story calls for. And your character is not fit to be that babyface. You're a freaking arrogant joker with an evil laugh and a weirdo dance habit, serenading people with your song, dressing like you raided your fucking wife's closet. You're a heel! Seth Rollins is a heel character playing babyface. And he's expecting to catch as much fire as Cody and Sammy did over this past year? Hell, even Drew McIntyre heading into his hometown? Into his home territory, I should say? I'm expecting to believe Seth Rollins is going to catch the fire that they caught in order to face and beat Roman Reigns? No, hell, as soon as this new title comes around, he's already talking about wanting that. He don't care about, no. This is all discombobulated political nonsense involving these people's intentions and agendas, and the fact that WWE, the Vince McMahon and Triple H caved to this shit, derailed the hottest story of this generation, derailed the opportunity to legitimize the talent roster of this generation. It's terrible. It's terrible. They fucked up bad. And everything they've been doing has been nonsensical ever since. So it's this brand of politics. And honestly, this is half the reason I'm not cheering for Seth Rollins to beat Omos. I know it's not popular. Seth Rollins is the high-flying guy that everybody likes in the IWC, and Omos is just this big, giant dude who's just there to be big, and we're not supposed to like big guys. We're supposed to like cruiserweights and lucha dudes. Don't get me wrong, I like Seth Rollins' in-ring ability. And there's been times I liked his character and thought he should have been the number one guy. This is not one of those times. And I'm not one of those people who's going to fucking say that Omos needs to get off TV. He needs to be inexplicably jobbed out and squashed by these guys who are way smaller than him and then pink slipped back to Africa. I'm not that motherfucker. I'm not one of those guys, okay? I'm not one of those guys. So between my distaste for the political bullshit surrounding Seth Rollins and how I believe that had a hand in the bad decisions that's been made this whole past month ever since WrestleMania Sunday, and the fact that I do not hate Omos for being big and black instead of being a fucking cruiserweight, I actually would like to see Omos beat Seth Rollins. And I wouldn't mind seeing him be the World Paperweight Champion just to see the cringy look on everybody's face when they finally fucking realized that wrong things were done. That's all I got. Well, that's all I got for this topic. I got a couple other things I want to address, but I want to make those into different videos so this doesn't take forever. Stay gold, y'all.